Alright, let's take a quick look at Hero of Weehawken, the Aaron Burr Conspiracy, 1805 to 1807. It's a designed for solitaire game, part of the historic gaming series from Victory Point Games, and it was designed by Robert Leonhardt, published in 2011. This is the original Red Banner edition, the smaller cards. Lower quality components than we're used to seeing these days from Victory Point Games. I don't think they've yet given it the Gold Banner treatment. So what you see is probably still what you're going to get, except for maybe the cards, which may be better quality or standard card size. These are the smaller matte cardstock cards, that I've sleeved. Because in this game, unlike States of Siege game, for example, shuffling is a major mechanism. You shuffle cards back into the draw pile to prevent bad things from happening. And while it's not as much as in Dominion or when you're in, it's enough to make you want to sleeve the cards. It's more than, say, Pandemic, to give you a sense. Nonetheless, this game holds a very special place in my collection. The larger cards or problems are solved, although it may not fit back on the board. So I hope they do upgrade the components soon. It's one of the first designed for solitaire games that I purchased, along with Ottoman Sunset, shortly after discovering Marco's video reviews. So until that point I was really only soloing cooperative games like Pandemic, or games with solitaire rules in them, kind of shoehorned in, like Agricola, where it becomes more of a puzzle. Not enough of a... well, that's a whole different story. So if you're a solitaire gamer, I would definitely recommend this game. If you're interested in solitaire games, or have never tried one, or thinking of incorporating one into your collection, and are even remotely interested in this topic, which is very obscure, which is interesting to me, because it's from a period of history that interests me, I would definitely recommend this game, especially since it's not that big of an investment, but there's quite a bit of game packed into it. This I actually prefer over the States of Siege games that I've played. I've not played any of the recent ones. So if you maybe have heard about some of these designs, this one is one that tends to, I think, fly under the radar. I'm not certain. So let's see here. I guess I'll just give you a gist of the game, even though it's been done before several times. And then I want to jump into a playthrough. But before I begin, I wanted to say that I prefer this game, I think, to a States of Siege game, for example, because and a States of Siege game is already more interesting to me solitaire than, say, Agricola solo, unless I'm going to be, playing a multiplayer game solo. This game not only has that kind of unpredictability, a little bit of luck thrown in, controllable luck, let's say, but also a vast array of outcomes that you can experience. It churns out different plot lines, and no two plays have been the same. There's always been at least one aspect to the story that differed, and that doesn't even take into consideration how well I happened to play that day. So there's just it's a great storytelling kind of design, while still being challenging, interesting, low complexity, but engaging enough. Enough things happening, enough options available to you from turn to turn, very quick playing, to continue to hit my table. You, as the player, represent President Thomas Jefferson in his second term after Burr's fled west. One of these face-down conspirator markers is Burr. Along with dealing with the responsibilities of being president, and the effect that may have on your prestige. There's the prestige point track, kind of like an action point allowance system. You're also trying to figure out what Burr is up to, determine if he is up to no good, if he poses a threat, what the nature of that threat may be, suss out his plans by deducing who his conspirators are. And there are these 9 conspiracy cards that during setup you pull from the deck, 4 of which are James Wilkinson cards, not surprisingly. You shuffle these and blindly draw 3, place them face down next to the board. Those remain unknown. And slowly through the course of the game, or quickly if you're lucky, you can figure out what's not in the deck. And could possibly even be 3 Wilkinson cards, in which case he's planning a coup d'etat. So you do that, and then the remaining 6 cards are shuffled back into the draw pile. The game is divided into 2 stages. The first stage is the operation stage, and then later possible trial stage. Here's the trial mat. And it's during the operation stage where all the action happens, the meat of the game, and the majority of the gameplay. Sometimes you may not even make it to, or oftentimes you may not even make it to the trial. During the operation stage, you are resolving events, your prestige is going to be going up and down, you're trying to save up prestige to be able to spend them during your Jefferson action phase. During your action phase, you can spend prestige to advance agendas, which may, once they're completed, provide some sort of benefit, like extra prestige point per turn, an increased level of victory at the end of the game, etc. You can dispatch federal agents to the west or to some place on the board, and they in turn can attempt to search for a conspirator, roll to attempt to flip one of these over and reveal them. Certain results, either in the conspirator markers or on the cards, can force a remix where everything is then placed back in the west and face down and shuffled. You can arrest a revealed conspirator with the federal agent and or local authorities. You can attempt to move Wilkinson 1 space. Every time the Wilkinson conspirator marker is revealed, Wilkinson moves 1 box closer to New Orleans, or remains in New Orleans if he's already there. Every time he enters Natchez, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans, bad things happen. Same thing with the Burr conspirator marker. When it's revealed, it's placed in Blennerhassett Island, and slowly, each turn, will then start moving towards New Orleans. You can spend prestige to send gunboats to New Orleans. It's 3 prestige points to do that. And that helps slow down the possibility of Burr's plan from launching. Certain events can start pushing this up, from concerns to danger to start rolling for launch. Once the plan launches, you pretty much lose. By how much you determine by looking at the scoring aid here. And here you can see all the various outcomes. Wilkinson kills Burr, and you let Burr go because you determine he's innocent. And if you're right, if you're wrong, Burr launches his expedition before you let him go or arrest him. And this is what you're shooting for. Burr is arrested and stands trial if he's not innocent. But simply knowing who the conspirators are, what his plan is not enough necessarily to be able to get a guilty verdict. You also have to gather evidence and prevent your opposition from gathering arguments for their trial defense. Once you feel comfortable enough to make a very good guess, once you narrowed down Burr's location and you're able to arrest him and bring him to trial, bring him back to Washington, the operation stage will end. The same thing will happen if Burr is killed, if his expedition launches, or you let him go. If you arrest him, the trial stage starts, and then you can just put all this aside and focus over here on this mat. And this goes by fairly quickly, but you basically declare what the charge is, and this is two-sided. If it's detached Western U.S. or coup d'etat, place it over here with the death side showing otherwise no death. If it is a coup d'etat, or if it is treason, then you can gain all the way up to a Ehrenberg guilty death verdict, which is worth 30 victory points. You're going to be gathering evidence to help you move along this verdict track. Or you can say he's planning to invade Mexico, in which case you can get all the way up to Ehrenberg guilty life. You score or lose victory points depending on whether or not you're correct, you charge him correctly, and how far up the verdict track you reach. Let's take a closer look at some of these cards. Here's a conspiracy card for Andrew Jackson. When you draw it, you gain 4 prestige points. You retain this card instead of placing it in the discard pile. Flavor text. Here's the one and only Burr card, the hero of Weehawken. Gain 0 prestige points. Roll on this table. Either the plan progress marker moves by 4, 3, or 2 spaces. And then you also have to remix conspirator units or add Spanish or British gold to the expedition, which provides positive die roll modifiers for the expedition launch checks. Evidence. Gain a prestige point. Spend 2 to add this to your evidence pile. Or simply discard it. +2 die roll modifier and trial rules. This is a special card. Special rules pertaining to the unpredictability of James Wilkinson's testimony. He can harm you or help you, basically, in this game. Trial defense, +2 for defense die rolls during the trial stage. You gain 0 prestige points. Place in the defense pile, or spend a prestige point to reshuffle this. Immediately redraw another card, start another turn, skip the Jefferson action phase. President Jefferson events, kind of general events not directly related to the topic. Lewis and Clark expedition, gain a prestige point. Retain this card, special ability, flavor text, immediately redraw. And then we have events that are more closely connected to the topic. Zebulon Pike explores Spanish Southwest. Gain 2 prestige points and advance this by 1, the planned progress marker. Or spend a prestige point to reshuffle this into the deck. Some of these events are going to be placed on the planned progress track, and they add a positive die roll modifier like the Spanish or British gold for the expedition launch checks. Now I'm leaving out quite a bit. Here's the front and back of the player aid. One of the things is that you can declare a presidential proclamation during your Jefferson action phase by spending 10 prestige points. You spend 10 prestige points and you get 2 free searches and a roll on the local authorities table every turn. And that table is here. And it allows you not only search attempts, but to attempt to arrest conspirators that are revealed without the need for federal agent presence in the same region. If Wilkinson is in New Orleans, then at the end of every turn there's a New Orleans phase, and you roll on this table, and bad things can happen or good things can happen. Let's say you roll Fateful Encounter. That would force you to roll on the arrest Burr table, but then you may get some new information, or Wilkinson may end up killing Burr, and you're losing 10 victory points per Wilkinson card that you hold. That's a conspiracy card. Here's the back of the player aid, listing all the conspiracy objectives and 3 card combinations of conspiracy cards that lead to those objectives. If Burr's daughter's involved, he's innocent, simply settling Wachita Valley. There are no Wilkinson cards. You have these possibilities: 1 Wilkinson card, 2 Wilkinson cards, 3 Wilkinson cards. What happens if the expedition launches? Basically, how many victory points you lose. And your results here, that can range from disastrous defeat, all sorts of flavor text, political embarrassment, to decisive victory.